Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, we'd like to thank IISSM for coming up with this topic which is so very relevant in today's world, where we are talking of digitization of the entire society. And society, as we know, is now increasingly coming to the cities. And towards that, if we look at it, a city would have multiple stakeholders which have a stake in terms of securing their own city as well as living within that city. So from that angle, if we look at it, a city would have three stakeholders, mainly the citizens that are residing in the city, the infrastructure of the city, and of course, the government that is governing the city, that is ensuring that the city functions the way it is supposed to. Individually, if we look at each and every stakeholder, they all have their own vulnerabilities, their own requirements, their own expectations from the smartness that is brought about in a city. So if we have to talk about the infrastructure, today we are looking forward to building infrastructure where the various aspects of a city, let's say the traffic light management or the traffic lights or the street lights or the other areas of a city, they want to interact with each other and ensure a smooth flow of traffic within the city. Similarly, there are other aspects of, let's say, water and electricity to be supplied to the citizens living in the city, and their usage, their uninterrupted supply is another aspect that the city needs to ensure. Apart from that, one of the third very important aspect, which is becoming an infrastructure now for a city, is the internet, its infrastructure and availability. The bandwidth that needs to be provisioned to ensure that all these digital services that are now making a city smart are always available. So if we look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats from the infrastructure perspective, we can say the strength is in terms of making the lives of citizens easy. Ease of living is what would be the strength that a smart city provides to its citizens from the infrastructure perspective. The weaknesses could be that today this smart city is vulnerable not only from within or from the proximity of a place of some incidents, but it is vulnerable from across the globe. Being connected, being available over the internet, these services, these facilities are always under threat. So that's a major weakness that needs to be handled. As far as opportunities are concerned, it is the increase in smartness. Each and every aspect is what is becoming more and more smart in a city. So there are vast opportunities. Today, transportation systems are talking to the street furniture. We are talking in terms of totally autonomous transportation. Metros on safe lines already available. But tomorrow, even on the roads, these are going to be available. Maybe what might come is air taxis also becoming totally autonomous. And threats, of course, are from the antisocial elements. Political volatility, which pose major threats to this kind of a smart city. Coming to the next stakeholder, the citizens. Someone who actually experience the smartness of that city. Now, these citizens have actually, if we look at the way smart cities are evolving, they have evolved from an always on to a always locked on to now coming into a smart city which is going to be not only always on but always, anytime, everywhere, at all places connected. There is no place where a citizen would not be connected to the city. We are driving a car, it has an internet inside. We are going into, let's say, coming into this hotel, maybe there are smart chairs sitting here. There are cameras which are capturing. Presently, we are on a video conference. So every time we are always connected into the digital realm. So if we look at it, what could be the strengths of this kind of a stakeholder, that is the citizens? They are the market. They are the ones who will drive this economy of a smart city. On the weakness side, it is the lack of tech savviness, the lack of awareness. Why I say so is because the threat is to the citizens' own privacy. They are now more and more connected, more and more available. Their lives are so much open. So there is a threat towards their privacy, their own maybe financial frauds, or what might say. But if you look at the opportunities that are provided for the citizens, it is the innovative landscape for generation of services. Immense potential. There is no limit to what innovation can bring about and make a city more and more smart and create that ease of living environment for the citizens. Coming to the third element, the government. Now the government has a major responsibility in terms of balancing the smartness of this city with the security of the infrastructure as well as the citizens. They need to drive, they need to ensure that this infrastructure is always available to the citizens and the citizens are always able to make use of these facilities. So one of the major requirements that any government which is managing a smart city is to develop a habit of ensuring the service level agreements for providing that service, for providing that digital service which is making the city smart. Today, if our electricity meters and water meters are becoming smart, it is important that these are always available. There is a means of them to communicate with the supplier, with the agencies which are supplying these facilities to the citizens. So, if we look at it, the strengths for a government are the awareness of the citizens. The more citizens are aware of their always on, anytime, anywhere, any place connectivity, the better it will be for the government. The digital society, of course, is a strength for the government. But the weakness would be the lack of discipline by the citizens. The citizens themselves ignoring the kind of harm that could come to them by not being aware of their own environment all around, because they are being watched, they are being tracked. Small things like moving in an autonomous vehicle, which is always connected to the internet, is giving your position at all times. So threats to such a city from the government perspective is the anti-national elements or even the political instability that might come in, wherein people might want to make political scores by creating disruptions in the society. Just by ensuring that the infrastructure is disrupted at certain point of time, let's say by digging of roads or something, can create havoc within the smart city, because people would become used to getting managed at all times and availing of services through digital means. So what are the opportunities that the government has in terms of a smart city is again creating that environment for the innovative landscape. Creating an environment which will help in bringing about that innovation. So, one additional thing that is common to all these three stakeholders in a smart city is that they are always generating humongous amount of data. Each and every service that is being provided, each and every infrastructure that is digitally connected is creating data at all times. And this needs to be protected, needs to be secured, privacy needs to be ensured. So overall, if we look at it, if a city is becoming smart, we as citizens need to become even smarter to be able to use those facilities in the manner that we are not vulnerable, we are not left in a situation where these facilities become difficult for us to avail, as well as maybe inadvertently create a disaster for a larger population within the city. We have an eminent panel out here where we have multiple speakers who have the domain knowledge in each and every aspect of managing this kind of a smart city. So maybe I can start with Commander Sinha, who's to my right, about his views on how to actually maybe look at the challenges that a smart city provides, and then what kind of mitigation opportunities that we have, which we may come later.
Thank you, sir, and thank you very much, IISSM, for this privilege and honor for bringing me here to learn from you all and speak on the topic that Colonel Monga has just said. So before I come to the challenges, let me just say that I am extremely optimistic of whatever is happening in India. I am extremely optimistic of the smart cities missions that is going on in India. There is a reason I will tell you. Now, if you see, as far as the need of a smart city is concerned, the government has realized very, very obviously that there is no other way that we have. Very soon, close to 40% of the population of India is going to be in urban areas. This 40% is going to be contributing approximately 75% of the GDP of India. So therefore, we have no option but to make the lives of our citizens more comfortable, enhance the standard of living by better managing the efficiencies in balancing the infrastructural requirements, challenges, and the services that we provide. Now, I will not go detailed into the smart city mission because it is very well documented. It talks of approximately 10 core elements of what will go into a smart city. Safety and security, to my mind, is one of the most primary requirements in any smart city, because safety and security is not really physical. You know, it is a feeling in the mind of a society that we can lead our lives the way we want, free of danger. Now, coming to the opportunity, again, it is well documented that the smart city market globally is going to exceed close to $700 billion by 2030. So within this ambit, as Colonel Monga rightly brought out, that there is immense opportunity across the value chain, whether you are a government, whether you are the primary stakeholder, that is the citizen, whether you are a business. There is immense opportunity. Coming to the challenges, now I will now start talking like a risk consultant that I am. Challenges are also going to be there and equally large and humongous. Will they be insurmountable? I don't think so. We will work around it. Now, if you see, the first challenge that people talk of is what will happen to data and what will happen to privacy. I will take you a few steps back. The first challenge to my mind is to be integrating all services that a government needs to provide to a society so that the quality of life improves and there is efficiency. Now, what all needs to be integrated? Colonel Monga just named a few of them. Physical security, certainly, which again entails CCTV surveillance, access control management, security, lighting, public space access, emergency services, fire, crime prevention, emergency response, national disaster response. There are many aspects there also. And also integration of water supply facilities, dynamic electrical load balancing, waste management, solid waste management, e-waste management. And each of these are very, very important because if you don't do waste management properly, you can lead to a situation where there is hazard on the very citizens that you are trying to protect. The other challenge that is, to my mind, going to come more than the technology part of integration of all this is our legacy of, trying to hold on to our respective domains. For example, I am not making any comment on any government department or even industry for that matter, but we like to work in our silos. The key facet of any smart city is going to be collaboration. Collaboration between government and citizen, collaboration between citizen and industry, collaboration within the industry and with the government. Because the opportunities for integration in terms of technology or processes is again huge. The other aspect comes of physically managing security. I am a firm believer, and I also come from this industry, that manned security is never ever going to go away. A lot of companies approach us to help them automate security, reduce the manpower and many things. But to my mind, manned security is never ever going to go. So now if this is the pool of resource that we have in security, what kind of training do we need to give to them to make them more citizen friendly, to make them more technology savvy, and to make them work in a manner that prevents infringements of safety and security, not to continue behaving in a past incident kind of a manner. So proactiveness is going to be very, very important. So there are, that also calls for, a complete revamping of the training of the security industry. Of course, threats are going to increase. If you see, over the past 2 years, we would have expected that the world would have mellowed down because we were going through a pandemic. But there is no part of the world where the overall level of risk has not increased. And this is across continents. There is geopolitical risk, there is geostrategic risk, there are infrastructural risks, there are climate related risks, there are technology risks, and there are of course socio-economic risks also. So the world will continue, to my mind, for the next 7 to 10 years to be very, very volatile. And this balance between managing the volatility and development of smart cities and providing better services to citizens is going to be the trick of the game. Again, coming back to security. Yes, security will be generating the maximum amount of data. While automating security, while you would have come into this lovely hotel. So, can anyone quickly tell me what all security features that they have gone through? Very, very quickly. Someone go rattle out. So there was a gate, there was a perimeter, there was a guard. Anything else? Okay. Anything else? Any intrusion detection system anywhere? CCTV with analytics anywhere? Could you see all security measures in place? Maybe not. Security itself is becoming very, very sophisticated, and herein also lies a huge opportunity for system integrators, consultants like me, manufacturers of safe hardware. Why I am saying safe hardware is that for a smart city security, I would propose that the hardware also be Indian only. Because this is something that cannot be left to another country or another foreign agency. It is better to have that, and there are enough references to be given for infringement of security when a certain make of camera or system is used. Again, this is not to make a comment on any particular company or nationality or anything like that, but there are very, very severe threats that we have. So I will not take much more time unless Colonel Monga asks me to speak again. But yes, smart cities is a huge opportunity. I think we are on the right track. The very fact that an entire symposium over 2 days has been centered around smart cities just shows the growing maturity here. Challenges will be there. There has been no point in history of mankind that there were no challenges, and they will be overcome. We have a very, very strong ecosystem of technologies, development and integration within our country itself, which I feel is more than capable of delivering, whether it is data privacy, whether it is network security, whether it is network and data redundancy, we all have it here. Data localization is a huge step that India is doing, and that itself has created a very big opportunity in the data center space. So all in all, I am very, very optimistic, and challenges, of course, we all are incumbent to overcome. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Sandeep. That was really covered a lot of topics in his initial thoughts. So one of the things what Commander Sandeep mentioned, we need to take the legacy of a city along with us. So we have a very eminent panelist here who's heading the digital transformation function of the CII itself, wherein he looks after a lot of solutions that keep coming along and various other aspects of digital transformation. So, Kanzedi, from your experience, once the city is becoming smart and digitally transformed, how do you think this transformation will actually start helping out in terms of the citizens, and or maybe do you also are aligned with the views of Sandeep, the kind of optimism that he showed?
Thank you, sir, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Well, what Sandeep said was certainly true to a large extent, but the future seems to be slightly more different to what we have come across. So I'll take a few points while we were having this discussion. I just thought back to the discussions which were happening in the World Economic Forum this year. There were quite a few interesting points which came out. I would like to list out a few of them, and then I'll talk about, and then I'll probably take a step back and give my experience of some kind of a, not exactly a smart city, but some kind of a solution which was executed. So, very interesting points which came out during the World Economic Forum this year. They said that within maybe 10 or 15 years from now, ownership of things will finish. Everything will be subscription based. We will not own a car, we will not own a house. To the extent the point was even being said that even the furnitures, the upholstery, everything could be on subscription. Agriculture would be vertical. Sandeep brought out that 40% plus people will shift to cities in near future. The point which was being discussed there, they said that 66% of the world population will move to the urban areas in very near future. Another interesting point was that most of the surfaces will become screens. VR, the virtual reality, will be a common thing. Communication with the devices will be with gestures and thinking. Travel will be, as sir also brought out, VLOT, which is vertical takeoff and landing. Maybe the cars will also finish. We will have different flying cars or devices which will take off and land and make things much easier for us. Healthcare will take a peak wherein it was said that by 2035, dying will become optional. Now, these are the predictions which people are making. I'm not very sure whether will this be actually happen or not, but this is what people are actually talking of in serious forums. So the technology has got a long way to go ahead, and it will continue. Now, coming back to the concept of smart cities. If you see, smart city overall will be what? It will be amalgamation of various devices embedded across the society or across the entire domain, the infrastructure. There would be billions and billions of what we call IoT devices or any other device which will help us build upon it. And that device, as of now, has got certain limitations in the sense that we have been discussing earlier also. I don't know if any fixed protocols have been defined or not, but as of now, the protocols are still very common. People just build their own devices and use it as per their own needs and availability. So the architecture of this IoT device, I'll just take 30 seconds to talk about it, I'll not deliberate on it, is basically the 4 layers. It could be many more as of now, but the basic structure consists of the 4 layers: the perception wherein the device is there, then the network layer, support layer, and the application layer. Now, the security, since is being talked, could be affected in any of these layers. People could, see, the thing is that today morning also I was discussing somewhere, they said that if there were 2 very important rules. If there is a vulnerability, it will be exploited. This was the first rule. And the second rule which came out was, everywhere there is a vulnerability in some way or the other. So it is more of being resilient rather than being just trying to secure ourselves. We should secure ourselves, but resilience is something very important that we should take care of. Structure of smart city that we are talking of, my thought process is the characteristic would have basic 4 functions to it. First is the heterogeneity. The devices which will be connected all across will be heterogeneous. There is no fixed protocol, as I said earlier. Every device will have different set of rules and regulations that it will follow. Plus, we want most of the things from those devices at a minimal cost. Therefore, there will be a resource crunch. These devices will not be able to accommodate security features that we would want it to have. There has to be a restriction because minimal cost may you get something what you pay for only. So therefore, these basic devices will have some kind of a restriction. And then for a smart city to be successful, scalability is very important for the communication channel. We don't know how much data is about to come. Although people do predict a lot, but the limit is huge. We were just discussing a little while ago, if you travel from Delhi to Gurgaon, the road is excellent. There are 4 lanes in each side. But during office hours, it becomes terrible. I don't know if you have traveled. I travel every day. One vehicle breakdown and there's a jam. So scalability has to be a very, very important aspect for the smart city to be successful. And as sir rightly brought out, besides the other features, the user interaction has to be very important. The user has to be convinced and he should accept that he is a part of it and should contribute to the facilities which are being demanded, produced, and give his comments and be able to contribute effectively. I'll just take a few more minutes and talk about an example which happened with me in the sense that my dear friend was involved in it. This is related to the Kumbh Mela, and today being the World Toilet Day, I'll talk about the sanitation part of it. Few years back, there was a huge Kumbh Mela happening in Prayagraj, and one of the major problems in the Kumbh Mela was of sanitation. Till some time back, there were no real toilets or something, and the ghats used to be almost landmines across where people found it very difficult to even walk. Then came the toilets built in, but the maintenance of toilets was again very difficult and people were not able to use it effectively. Then the last Kumbh Mela, which was a grand one, One of my friends got an opportunity to work on it, and he was into those IoT devices. He made those toilets smart. Now, by smart toilet, it meant that they could detect the gases and identify which toilet is not very clean, what is the level of water available in that toilet, how do you clean it, who is the staff responsible for maintaining it, where are the water vehicles which can reach there fastest, if there is some blockage or something, where is the resource to maintain it. They could all manage it very, very effectively. And there was a command control room made for this, which in fact the Prime Minister also visited and appreciated a lot about it. But then they also faced another problem there. Technology was being used effectively, everything was there. Every day morning, the helpline used to get complaints of this specific vendor in the tune of hundreds. SMSs coming, and same SMSs complaining about him throughout their bad service, not a good thing, which in fact everybody was praising. However, these SMSs were coming complaining about it. They were very amazed, how is this happening every morning, this is coming. So when they did more of research, they found that their competitor who was earlier getting this contract had put few free chargers in the toilet. He gave 100 rupees to the guard saying कि हम भी सेवा कर रहे हैं, बस तुम इसके चार्जर का ध्यान रखना, that's all. Now through those chargers, they were juice jacking the phones of the people who were going to the toilet and sending the SMSs against this person, this organization. So this was nothing major, but this is what can be done for anything. You get a control of a phone and then you can just use that phone to bankrupt that guy, use anything, make him an offender in the social media, anything can be done. So the point which I'm trying to convey, that everything was being done as a welfare measure, but it landed up showcasing something which could be very, very dangerous. I'll take a pause here and hand it back to you, sir.
Thanks, Suhail. Thanks for bringing out the fact that even going to the toilet can make you bankrupt. So we need to be careful when we are in a smart city. Suhail really brought out one very interesting point of the devices, the level of security that these devices will maintain. Because India is a very cost-conscious society, it becomes very important for us to realize that the point that Suhail brought out, what you pay is what you will get. So if a device is a very vanilla device and it is not able to take on the security requirements that are required to be there, let's say a CCTV placed in your home, or like he's brought out the example of the toilets, that becomes a nuisance or a vulnerability. Not knowing also, it becomes a vulnerability for the citizens. So I'll now next come to Dr. Geeta Krishnan. Dr. Geeta, from your scientific community, how is the scientific community actually handling this kind of a problem of the Indian citizens being so cost conscious and yet wanting to avail the services of a smart city? Your views and certain other aspects of the smart city.
Yeah, thank you, Colonel Monga. I think first I want to thank for the opportunity. I hope I'm audible. Yes. Okay, yes. Great. So yeah, I will definitely talk about the technology aspects, but before that, I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on the general topic on safety and security in smart cities. So first, I think, when we talk about safety and security, the key to that is going to be prevention. Right? How do you prevent before things happen? So if things have happened, what all this technology, your 24/7 news channels, what they're going to do is they're going to only amplify and make it seem as if your city is not safe, right? So we need to prevent before any kind of untoward accident, incidents happen. And prevention, I think, is going to be the key when we talk about safety and security in smart cities. In fact, one of the downsides of having technology and 24/7 surveillance is more such cases are going to come out of breach of security, and right. But I feel that's required to establish a baseline for people to realize what is the level of safety and security there is in a smart city, and then over time same technology will then be able to benchmark and show how things have improved, right? And a key to this is going to be AI and IoT, right? Of course, Madam Sinha said, manned security is not going to go away. I agree, right? Manned security will continue to be there, but I think that would be the last stage, right? I think before that, you're going to have several levels of automated, security arrangements, which will eventually lead to a manned, intervention that may be required. So, for the key for that is going to be AI and IoT, right? And how does one ensure this without violating the privacy laws, right? So that is going to be, I think, the key challenge when it comes to safety and security, right? Every public space, whether you talk about your beaches, your parks, any historic monument, your buses, stops, everywhere you're going to have surveillance. And this is going to be powered by AI technology. It's already, in several cities, it's already in place. It's just going to, increase manyfold in the future, right? And what is bothering me is, this lack of protocol on who gets to access these feeds. How is the sharing going to be? And what is it going to be? How is it going to be recorded? Right? There is really no protocol for these, and that's something that's a cause for concern. I'll just highlight a few example areas and illustrate this conflict. It's going to have a lot of opportunities, and there are some threats as well. So one is, of course, in healthcare. I think that's going to be one core area which is going to increase significantly in smart cities. And also, with more people coming to cities, I think there will be a lot more health issues that we need to address because of increased pollution and increased, exposure to, health safety, health, threats. So that's something that's going to be important. And what can also address this is access to universal digital health records. So if you have health records digitized and it's accessible universally, that can completely transform how healthcare can be served to the citizens. One example again here is perhaps let's consider somebody who is met with an accident, and if we know the history of this accident victim, then the doctors would be able to treat appropriately. Right? And if this could be accessed from the universal digital health record, then it makes the entire process much faster and safer. Right? So that could be one example of healthcare. The other, of course, is my own area of expertise, which is transportation. It's of course absolutely necessary. We are not, even though I'm participating online, I would have loved to be there in person. Right? We are all social animals. We're not going to live in digital world all the time. We still need to travel, right? It's absolutely essential, and it's only going to increase with time. More and more people are going to travel. Maybe travel for work may reduce, but people would travel for recreation, for social engagements, and so on. Right? And a smart city is one where people can have choices how they can travel, right? Access to different options, as well as they can feel comfortable and safe in whatever mode of travel they choose to travel, right? And an example here is something that we're already implementing in Chennai and several cities in India, providing cameras in buses. So this happened after the unfortunate Nirbhaya incident, right? And so cameras in buses are great. You get to make sure that you can ensure safety and security of the travelers, and at the same time you can also understand the level of congestion in these buses. Use this information to again inform citizens, when they can travel, more comfortably and so on. Right? So that's definitely there are a lot of benefits to it, but at the same time this can be used for surveillance. We can know when people are traveling. If the wrong people get access to this data, they can use it for illegal means. So that is going to be a threat element there as well. A third example could be in terms of participatory governance, which many people, especially in the European countries, they say that's how we measure a smart city. How much are the citizens participating in the governance of the city, right? So if you look at that, I think smart cities technology can really make a big difference. We could have online referendums. Citizens could vote on important decisions for the city, and it can happen instantaneously. But at the same time, this is going to expose people to others. People will get to know what are the things I'm voting for, what kind of a person I am. Right? They can start targeting me based on this. So how do we ensure? So we had this news article today which said we have a great data policy, but then government seems to have a lot of control over the data, right? So how do we, also protect from the government? So that could be an important issue as well. So that's another example of an area. And maybe the fourth and final example I would quote is energy, right? So we need to have energy security as well. And for a growing economy, I think we need to think about how do you use energy optimally, and that gets more critical. And I think here again, when you talk about AI, IoT, all of this is going to require a lot of energy, right? So how are we going to make AI, IoT optimized for energy use? So that can be an important area that requires research. And eventually, as an example here, buildings will have sensors. We already spoke about it, how there are sensors everywhere, right? So buildings will have sensors. It will detect where people are, where there's a crowd, switch on your air conditioner, switch it off, switch on lights, whatever other power requirements are required, right? All of this could be automated. But at the same time, it could expose uh, my behavior, which room do I spend a lot of time in? For example, people can get to know that, right? And maybe I don't want others to know that. So again, there is a need, a lot of opportunities. How do you balance it with having, right protocol, right kind of privacy laws that protect this data from, being used for unfair means? So I think that's going to be the key. So in terms of technology, I think technology is already there, right? There is a lot of research that's happening. It's going to be more of refining these technologies. Uh, we've done a great service by announcing these smart cities even before the technology was ready, right? And therefore, technology has become, innovation, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. So there is now a necessity, and everybody is running pillar to post, figuring out where is the technology, how do we innovate, what can we, maybe create new to serve this new opportunity, and therefore, right, in some ways, the cart is before the horse here, but eventually, I think the horse will come in front and it will pull the cart as well. Right. So that's my thoughts initially. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta Krishnan. In fact, your institution is at the forefront. We know that METI is collaborating with you for actually bringing that horse in front of the cart, and your institution is really leading in that aspect. Coming on to Suhas, who's got a very illustrious, I'll say, his domain in terms of managing or providing the kind of transportation smartness to a city. So Suhas, your thoughts on how these your domain actually starts affecting and how it will pan out in future, and maybe some challenges and some initial thoughts on the smart city. Suhas, you are on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible now. Yes.
Okay. First of all, thanks IISSM for this opportunity. And personally, I must apologize for getting a bit delayed, but there's an interesting story behind that. So I'll start with that. And, we're talking about smart cities and smart surveillance. And exactly that's what delayed me to an extent, because one of my friend needed to go to doctor. So I actually helped him to go to the doctor. And this doctor has a requirement that you have to remove your footwear when you step into his office. So we both removed our footwear. We went inside. The consulting was done. And when we came out, much to our surprise, we realized that though my footwear were there, my friend has lost his footwear. So some smart bugger, just flicked off those new shoes that he has bought earlier this week. And then, so we said what to do. And then I looked around and I saw there was a camera. So I said, let's go inside and ask the receptionist if there is a, footage available, so we'll be able to figure out actually what happened. So if we want to complain to the police, we can figure out something. Much to our surprise, we realized that the camera was there, the footage is being taken, but no recording is happening. Now, if this is the state of surveillance, so it's only looking at, so somebody has to be constantly monitoring that camera to see if something is happening. Unfortunately, for cost reason or whatever reason, the doctor and his staff didn't bother to, keep the recording on, or whatever is the case. Even we found when we looked at it that the date stamp was also older, so they are not even configured or calibrated the device to give today's. And of course, this is not a state device. I understand this is a private device, but nonetheless, that's the status of smart cities. So that took a bit of time, and then I had to rush because I had promised Colonel saying that I have to be on this call, so I had to rush to my office. Unfortunately, the traffic got delayed, but yeah, interesting. So I've been hearing all of the three speakers before me, and all of them kind of stated the various problems and the issues that smart cities can offer. And obviously, because when we were into this physical securities world, just the lock and the key perimeter, taking care of perimeter itself was the security, and maybe using manned or using some other missions like this, we were able to manage. The moment we became flat, the moment the world became flat, and everybody could access anything from everywhere, the challenges have increased. And as we convert our traditional cities into smart cities, because in the traditional cities, I know whenever I go to my native place, the moment I get down at the main station, the whole village knows that I have arrived. I don't know what's the mechanism. Without smartness, without smartphone, the message reaches. So and so's son, so and so's grandson has reached the village. So there's some level of smartness which is already there in the villages. We're now replacing that with electronic, and thereby allowing outsiders to have more access than insiders to have more access. So that's a different topic that we'll discuss. But since you asked me about the technology availability and what technology can do to secure smart cities, well, there are various options available that we could look at. So we can look at our first line of defense as augmented security screening. And of course, I heard about privacy concerns and everything. But let me tell everybody on this panel, whether you fight for the data privacy laws or whatever, all of our data is already available on darknet, and it is available for a very cheap price. So whether you're given consent, whether you're not given consent, somebody is already watching you. Our only problem is when government starts watching us. So some reason there are free apps available. If you want to figure it out, want information about somebody, it's available on the darknet at a very cheap cost. So they know everything. Somebody spoke about knowing who I hang out with, what are my frequent points of travel, because Google Maps is recording everything, and all of that data is already available on that. So augmented security screening could be the first line of defense. So when a truck comes in, a vehicle comes in, or a person comes in within the premises or the area, this is the first technology that can help us. Second, as the crime happens, crowdsourcing and emergency apps. So the moment we are becoming smart, what's happening is we are becoming more insular. We are becoming more inwards, and we are stopping the interaction with other people. But what is expected is, as humans, whatever the social contact that we had, and I gave the earlier example of native place, that kind of awareness, that kind of concern about our neighbors have to be there. And even in smart cities, we will then have to help out by giving away our pictures, giving away our videos, giving away the kind of information that we have to the law enforcement agencies, so that gathering data on crimes can be easier, and therefore we can be able to catch the culprit a little better. Database crime prevention, which is happening in some US cities now, especially in Chicago and Los Angeles, which is more like predictive policing. So you look at events, and if you know that if these things are happening, a crime is going to happen, and then you can send a police vehicle on that spot in advance. So this is again based on predictions of the past, the happenings of the past, and trying to arrive at some sort of predictive analysis. If these are the things happening, a crime is likely to happen 90% or 99%. Send a police vehicle over. Then monitoring from sky, which is drones for risk assessment, because in crowded areas, somebody mentioned physical security will remain, but the moment area starts getting crowded, physical security cannot do anything. So somewhere, the sky monitoring, the drones-based monitoring could be possible. Electronic monitoring in another one. Somebody mentioned the example about toilets. The same thing could be used for better purposes, so that the virtual information of who is where, what's happening where. Accident case was certainly discussed. Similarly, how the school bus is moving around, how the school kids are moving around, or when they go on trips or excursions, those kind of things could be monitored. Well, not much prevalent in our country, but in US they're already looking at the gunshot identification, because the earlier you are able to figure out from where the bullet is coming, the firing is coming, you are able to prevent it better. Because in case of physical security, it takes time for them to identify from where the things are happening. Here, the augmented intelligence could help us to identify that, and therefore some further loss of human beings could be avoided. Uh, of course, protecting our data has become more important. And one interesting thing which is happening, and I don't know whether people are already looking at that, but I mentioned about dark web and darknet. College students are already unfortunately being used for this purpose. It's being sounded to them like it's some sort of a game or it's some sort of a competition, and their brains are being used by cyber criminals to hack certain things. Now, they do it in pieces so that no single person knows what's happening. They crowdsource. They effectively started crowdsourcing for doing the crime. Unfortunately, we as defenders are not yet collaborating effectively. Banks are not talking to each other. Establishments are not talking to each other. We are not sharing information about any events which are happening at our end. And there's this regulation which has come that within 6 hours from the time that the data breach has happened, you have to report it. People still have concerns about it. And if we're not ready to collaborate ourselves, defending smart cities, or for that matter, defending any kind of virtual setup is going to be important. Last but not least, I think somebody mentioned, but I would say there are smart street lightings. So, at the same time, you have to make sure that energy is also saved. But if there is a movement of people, the street lights could get on, and therefore, could prevent a crime from happening, kind of. So, in terms of technology, various things are available. How effectively we use it, and the first case, the doctor's case, I said, how sincerely that's being monitored and practiced would actually help us going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhas. So a very interesting scenario is emerging from all the panelists' initial thoughts if we look at it. Sandeep mentioned about the requirement and the ever-presence of a manned security. Suhail brought in the aspect of augmented reality, which Suhas later on added on with augmented security. And of course, Dr. Geeta Krishnan brought out the AI part of it. So if a smart city is generating a lot of data, of course, the analytics is going to produce a lot of various angles to securing the smart city or providing better services to a smart city. But what happens if that augmented reality is actually fake? If someone tampers with that data which is being collected, so the integrity of that data itself, because the AI that we are talking about is actually analyzing whatever is in front of it. It has no brains of its own. There has to be some additional override over it. We've talked about manned security. Now think of a scenario. Today we go to a restaurant. We take pictures of what we are eating. We take pictures in that location. We've gone for a vacation to an abroad city, and we are very merrily uploading our pictures onto the social media. However, that became a security challenge for us, wherein the people who were inimical to the society, the anti-social elements, they took advantage of it and just started exploiting, and we saw some burglaries happening in those people's places. However, The citizens have become smart and they've stopped now putting those pictures or advertising that they are not available at their residence. But is that advertisement still on or not? Because like in a smart city, if you are always on, always connected, let's say you have a smart meter at home or you have a smart refrigerator at home which stops ordering groceries, stops ordering milk, your electricity consumption starts going down, is again a data point which the AI starts analyzing as the usage having gone down means the occupants are not available at home. So you see, the scenarios again come back to that manned security, what Commander Sandeep said, is an override that needs to be brought in. So it's a symbiotic relationship that needs to be built in. So from that angle, now if we start building up about, let's say, how we as citizens, because that becomes a very, very important aspect for all of us, how as we as citizens should actually be smarter in terms of ensuring our own security, our own well-being within a smart city, because we need all these healthcare facilities, what Dr. Geeta Krishnan, just brought about. We need those intelligent transportation systems. We need to have a point where the transportation system of the government starts interacting with, let's say, our own private vehicles or the local last mile connectivity transportation, or even with Google Maps where we come to know what time a particular metro train is going to arrive and what is the position. So if that becomes an important aspect for all of us, we come to the next point of the citizens, which are central to this smart city. So some views on, I'll request all panelists, on how do you think these citizens need to evolve their own selves, need to uplift their own awareness to ensure that they are protected, they are safe while utilizing these facilities in a city. So once again, I'll start with Commander Sandeep. Sandeep, your views.
Thank you, sir. And it seems that I'm the odd man out when I say that, manned security will be required. I will, just request you to think, what are the latest kind of crimes that you have heard of in the last 20 days or last 3 months? Anybody? Because why I'm asking this is that a city can never be smart if the people do not feel secure, right? And therefore, prevention of crime is the first start point. So what are the kind of crimes that you have heard? Some lady getting chopped into 35 pieces? Yes? Is that a cyber attack? No. Day before yesterday, a body was found somewhere in Noida, I think, stuffed into a suitcase. Was that a adversary country jamming our infrastructure system? No. Let's go to the other part of planet Earth, the United States of America, which many say is the most advanced. What are the crimes or what are the problems that they are facing? Children shooting each other? Right. So when we are talking of safety and security, the first thing that we talk of is physical sustenance of security. That will come only from human beings. The rest, everything, of course, will be great enablers. Now, coming back to what Colonel Monga sir said, that how do we educate people? So here the catchword becomes educate. Awareness sessions are very, very important. The awareness session should basically, to my mind, concentrate on talking on the pros and cons when we are trying to strike a balance between convenience and safety. we know that our data is out there already. So, you know, this whole discussion that hamara data chala jayega, ye, all that doesn't really stand because it is already out. Each of your cell phones are recording and passing on this entire conversation of the day. You don't even know when your cell phone's camera is on because it takes a very short software to just prevent the light from getting switched on, but the camera still works. And that is true for any CCTV camera also that you see. I did say that security hardware technology must be Indian, right? And for those of you, I'm sure a lot of you know, that there are advisories on which companies' hardware may be, you know, avoided. Okay, so awareness of people, especially from the point of view of explaining the pros and cons and their individual responsibility. Let's come back to crime. Crime will reduce only and only when every citizen considers the safety of his city as his own responsibility. No country, no government, no police, no armed force, no paramilitary force anywhere in the world can ensure it by itself. So, you know, one of Suhas sir mentioned something, you know, where crime can be predicted. So I am aware that in the US, they ran a program called PredPol, predictive policing, right? So that is based on crowdsourcing of information from the general public. Perhaps there could be some kind of app in India also wherein every citizen is able to take a picture or record or do anything of a crime or a nefarious incident and pass it on to a command center of the city. And thereafter the law enforcement agencies take it on. Now, unless we have this feeling that safety and security of society is my individual responsibility also, no city is going to become smart because crime will never ever go away. And the first victim perhaps could be that particular individual himself or herself. Back to you, sir.
Thanks, Sandeep. And you really brought out a very important aspect of citizens being more aware and being the eyes and ears which the police keeps on mentioning, despite the digital inputs that are being provided. To that, if we look at it today, even the cars have started becoming smart with their 360 degrees camera visions, and they keep capturing whosoever gets in collision with them. And I mean, certain high-end, I'm sure, would be even passing it on to the security agencies. So they are also part of our smart cities citizens who are actually working on it. So I'll come to Colonel Zaidi now. Suhail, from your angle, apart from the citizens' awareness, how do you think, from your experience, even the corporates are adapting to these smart city requirements and doing business in this kind of a scenario where they need to be conscious of their environment at all times?
Sure, sir. But before answering that, I'll add a more comment to what Sandeep said. Human security can never be bypassed for sure. But then another point comes to my mind is till the time the general public, not the people who are sitting here, the general public feels secure after looking at a police person rather than feeling afraid, this point will always be a point of contention. We have to start looking police as somebody who is going to help us out and is our security rather than some kind of a trouble. That is one point. Second point, again attached to the conflict between a human security and the technology thing. Recently, I saw a message which was forwarded to me by a friend again, wherein there was a family, elderly people living in a house, and there was a guard there outside. They received a food package saying that you had ordered this, and this is the food package for you. But the elderly people said, no, we never ordered it. And the guard was always involved. The guard said, Saab, ye to keh raha hai ki you have ordered it. So they said, no, we didn't order. They said, Acha, if you have not ordered, we'll cancel this and you will get the refund back. just hand over your phone, you will get a OTP and we'll get your refund done. And the guard helped it in this. And as was expected, when they handed over the phone, their bank account got short of 50,000 or something. So now, you see that even if the human people are involved here, we need to train them as well. The point is that jitna चीनी डालेंगे शुगर the चाय उतनी मीठी होगी कहानी है. So we have to train everybody. Even the human aspect of it has to be trained who is supporting the other people. So that was the point. And coming back to your point, sir, the corporate is certainly working very hard in educating people. They are adopting villages. They are trying to help understand people how technology is going to help them. There are CSR programs conducted across the country wherein the technology is being used to help them. And education is certainly being conducted throughout. I think that will be a different topic if I go on to that, so I'll take a pause here.
Thank you, Suhail. Dr. Geeta Krishnan, your thoughts on how the awareness quotient of the society needs to be brought in to ensure that we live smartly in a smart city.
Yeah. So, I think one of the examples that I keep quoting is of how mobile telephony, right, expanded in the country. Right. I remember 20, 25 years back, when I was in college, there used to be one phone in the entire college, a mobile phone, or two phones in the entire college. And then at that time, people were saying, India, nobody will buy a mobile phone and all, it's too expensive. It's not going to work in a place like India, right? So that used to be the kind of story. But then today, we have more mobile phones than population. And every, your street vendor, everybody is using technology, right? Again, necessity, is what drives people. And when we give people services, when we give people opportunities to benefit from technology, they start adopting it. And I'm a firm believer of that. Another aspect I want to illustrate, of course, Commander, Sinha said that, people will have to be eyes and ears, right? See, one thing that I've always been afraid of is paranoia that kind of sets in, right? For example, I remember in the New York subway some time back when I used to travel, they used to make these frequent announcements, right? Be aware of your surrounding. If there is any baggage which is unclaimed or looks suspicious, let us know. All right. So all of this actually kept people on an edge. Right. Maybe it's improving safety and security, but it's making people paranoid. Right. People are not relaxed, and I think that's equally important as well. Right. So again, that's where technology has to enable this. We should not overburden citizens into being, these eyes and ears of the entire security. If it happens naturally, that's okay, but it should not get to a point where people feel overburdened, people feel paranoid about this overall safety and security. And the idea of a smart city is to actually make life comfortable, easy, and and we should not. In the name of security and safety and asking them to be the police, we should not overburden their lives. That's a thought that comes to me. One other point, that I just want to make related to an earlier thing that Mr. Suhas actually brought up. I think maintenance is going to be a very important thing, and and people have to be responsible in how they use all this technology that the government puts up, smart lighting systems or any of the smart technology that we have in the public domain. People should take care of it as their own, and make sure that it's not uh, you know misused or somebody doesn't tamper with it. So those things will be important, because we did some projects where we developed some technology implemented in the field, and we found the major challenge was not in the implementation, but it was in the maintenance. So I think that's an aspect that we tend to ignore. And I just wanted to highlight that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta Krishnan. Suhas, your thoughts on the awareness of citizens for the smart cities?
Yes, so we heard both views. We heard Sandeep's views that humans have to take greater responsibility, and we heard Dr. Geeta Krishnan's view also that individuals should not be overburdened. Yes, I mean, completely agree. But I would say, we do a lot of work in artificial intelligence. And I never call AI as artificial intelligence. I have been calling that as augmented intelligence. And that's for only reason that, it is an augmentation to human intelligence because we are still far off from completely replacing our intelligence by a machine. We'll do it someday. I don't know when, probably in our lifetime itself. But till such time, it's going to be augmented. So both have to work coordinated fashion. Both have to work hand in hand. As far as individuals are concerned, each one of us has to be aware. We have to be vigilant, and we have to be prudent enough as to what we want to share and what we don't want to share. When you mentioned about examples about I proudly declaring about being vacationing in Australia. So somebody then be at my home and then wipes out my home completely. At the same time, because of the smart meters recording that the electricity consumptions are low, therefore somebody is watching it and wiping out my house. So yes, along with our prudence, encryption of data in a better way is also required. So data is encrypted in such a way that only those who need it, those are able to access it. And again, things are happening through technology also. So far, we were thinking we got a password and that's the end of it. No, only passwords are not sufficient enough. We need multi-factor authentication. Along with password, I need some more thing to secure myself. And maybe if I can add biometric to it, because smart cities means people are talking about even my door latches are going to be smart, so somebody can hack it. The moment things become smart, it can be hacked. So it's our smartness also as to how much of smartness we allow to creep into our daily life, where we keep it purely physical or human based, versus we allow technology to take over us completely. And to answer your question, the social connections have to be maintained. We are becoming too much insular because of the, technology has become ever prevalent. People are on WhatsApp, people are, on different social media, but they have forgotten to meet each other. They have forgotten to call each other. There are very less calls happening now, more text happening. So the social connection has to be maintained. We need to have empathy for our neighbor. So, unfortunate thing I'm seeing in societies now that, when somebody passes away, there are hardly few people we are seeing coming together for the funeral. And, funeral agencies are coming up who are going to take care of. And when the life that I seen when our parents were there, the neighbors used to help each other in case of certain situations. So somewhere we ourselves have to do the soul thinking as to how insular are we becoming. Forget about nuclear families. Now we are becoming individual. So that's something we will have to. And of course, I spoke about encryption of data, which is required at the government level, at the smart cities level, at the personal level as well. So that just to answer the question that you asked.
Thanks, Suhas. So that part on encryption, what Suhas brought about, and the paranoia that Dr. Geeta Krishnan brought out, if we just reflect back, we all used to use postcards. The life was so simple. Everything was in open domain. There were no privacy concerns, and we all were living so happily. Today, we don't even want to show our emotions, we want to encrypt them. If we show more, we tend to develop paranoia. So that's where the society is going, and we need to balance the entire thing. That's up to us. I would now throw the floor open for any questions that the audience might have to the panelists, and I'll request you to, if you have something specific to a particular panelist, please take his name and direct your question to him. Otherwise, the panelists are free to answer whatever questions come from the audience.
So before you take on that, I have one point to add to what you just said. When we were young, when we were going to school, I remember that, if we did anything wrong, and I'm sure there are many senior people in this forum, we did anything wrong, our neighbor, our uncle, the shopkeeper at the corner once used to slap us come to our home and tell our parents, this is what we have done, and we used to get another slap, right? Now, today, that is completely vanished because no parents want somebody else to touch their kids. So therefore, something is happening, but the parents are not being made aware because obviously you can't be omnipresent. If somebody watched your daughter or son going with somebody who's an antisocial element, and that's not getting reported to your family, this is where the chain is breaking. And that's what I'm saying, empathy for neighbor, caring about our next generation and collaborating for the benefit of the society has to continue. Thank you.
Rightly said. So Suhas, there's a comment that that gap itself has been encrypted now. So any questions from the audience?
Hello. Yeah. There is a question from Social Media Connect from those who are listening online. One, Mr. Agarwal asked, we heard that the data being captured from the smart devices, smart gadgets. So if that, the anti-nationals or anti-social elements can pick up the data and utilize for their advantage, to their advantage, why can't we use, or the police there, he is saying that why can't we turn the table with the use of the same technology by self as a common man or by the police, as they are also using the same smart devices. Thank you.
So anyone on the panel would like to take it on?
Yeah, so I'll take the first shot at it. Very simple thing for this is when an anti-national or somebody else who's a non-government body is doing it, they don't have to ask your consent. They just do it. Then the government has to do it. Government has to take your consent because the privacy of the citizen, the privacy laws come into picture. So those who are law-abiding, and we take government or common people law-abiding, we have to go as per rules. Whereas anti-national or anti-social element, they are not abiding law, so they are free to do whatever they want to do. And that's why I've been talking, that we need to collaborate more. We need to agree on, how we could share, how we could be, together so that this could be avoided.
I would just like to add here that there are two aspects to it. One is that people who are doing it are the experts there in the field. And we expect our police and others to respond who are not so highly educated in this field, and therefore it takes time. So this comes at an individual level, but I can assure you at the national level, I've been part of the signal intelligence and other agencies. We do take enough adequate actions, but our response is not knee-jerk. Entire information is collated, and thereafter adequate actions are taken against those anti-nationals as well.
Yeah, the only thing I can add over here, because yesterday I had some meeting with the DCP of cybersecurity here in Mumbai. So Mumbai Police has a separate branch, and I'm sure as of now, this is not there across the country, but large metros for sure have it. So police have this mechanism, but the only concern that he mentioned to me was, he is unable to get enough collaboration from businesses and people. That's his biggest challenge because, he has to beg for the data. He just can't go and grab the data from you. And therefore, even the data prevention or the data security bill is still not yet clear. We all have been referring to GDPR in Europe, which, something has been done by European countries to that extent. We are still struggling, and that's his biggest challenge. Because he is not getting cooperation from good people. And therefore, it is impossible for his department to figure out things fast.
Yeah, so just to add to this, definitely, data is a double-edged weapon, where if used fruitfully, it has its advantages. So if you look at it, there are certain initiatives of the government in terms of Niti Aayog coming up with a DAPA architecture, data empowerment and privacy architecture, wherein they want to empower the citizens by utilizing their own data, because data today is a tangible thing. So that architecture actually is, let's say, looking at a business GST data to provide loans to that business, because that data shows how much business, the GST data shows how much business that company would be doing. But on the other hand, this similar data into the hands of, let's say, the competition of that business, it's equally harmful. So both sides, both coins, both sides of the same coin, and how you toss it, how you use it is more important, and definitely our own initiatives of protecting ourselves will help. And it's not that the government is not doing anything to protect it. Like Suhas said, Europe has come out with a GDPR. We've been working on this for quite some time. And now, of course, yesterday itself, the next draft has come into public domain for consultation. So things are happening, and the government is working towards protecting us more and more and our data. Yeah. Anyone else?
Good evening. I have got a very basic questions, or rather queries you can say. The panel we are discussing about the safety and privacy concern with the smart cities. And my concern is with the privacy and security of the smartphones. So, you know, the smartphones becomes, it's a necessity, not luxury, you can say. Everyone, like from the pizza delivery boy to corporate professional to government to the corporate, everyone using this smartphone. And we all know all our movements, all our activities, all our transaction is being tracked by the service provider. Even we all are using Google's, and we know all our activities, where we are moving, what we are doing, what we are going to do, everything is tracked by the Google. So how we can protect the security of the person who is using the mobile users? So what is the way out? Is there any policy to prevent and check the security of this mobile users? Thank you.
So, sir, it all depends on what all do you want. You have to make a compromise in your convenience and your security. So now, if you have an Android app, Android phone, it comes up with a very basic setup wherein the user has the rights to decide what all you want to allow. But because if you want it to be very secure, there will be many features which will get disabled. So there's a compromise which every user has to make to see what he wants and how much of his information he wants to share with whoever is asking for it. No point in downloading apps which need your various permissions. As you were discussing earlier, a Torch app wants to access your phone, your camera, your calls, your SMS. Why do you want that kind of an app? So one has to be very cautious on that. But if you blindly start using it and want everything, plus you want security also, then there has to be a line drawn somewhere in between.
I mean, I second that thought. I mean, one has to be careful as to how many apps we want to use and what's the purpose of using those apps. And since you asked what an individual can do, so a prevention mechanism also could be, and if it is feasible, I'm not saying it's going to be possible for everyone, but you could just try and keep 2 separate phones. So whatever for your financial transactions, use a very basic phone, because all you need there is OTP, which is coming on your SMS. And don't do any smart things on that phone. So use one phone for your banking transaction, which is only giving you OTPs, and use your other smartphone for whatever purpose that you want. This is one sure way of making sure that your essential, important financial data is not going on to other apps. I don't know whether it will be practicable and feasible for everyone. That's why I said those who could do it can try and do it.
From the policy front, since you touched upon that, you see the government and the sectoral regulators, like Suhas brought about the point of OTP. Now, RBI has mandated that your financial transactions have to be dual authenticated. You not only put in your password, but you also get an OTP. It is not there in other countries. So the sectoral regulators have brought in a lot of these kind of measures which help you protect your mobile security. In addition, like I just now mentioned, yesterday itself, the Personal Data Protection Bill has again, the draft has been put in public domain for consultation. But the moot point is, all these policies are there as a deterrent. The policy, let's say yesterday's policy, if you look at it, it puts a penalty of 200 crores on a corporate body which misutilizes your data. I've not read it completely, I just read it in the newspaper that there is a penalty for 200 crores. Similarly, GDPR was mentioned by Suhas. Now there it talks of 2% of the global revenue as a penalty to a company which maybe causes a breach or some kind of a problem for an individual. So those policies are there, but finally, a mobile is a personal device. It is how I use it. It is how I protect it. It is how I actually want to ensure that I am safe. So Suhail brought about the example of a torch. If that torch is asking for me to share my SMSs, my calls, my photographs, he has no business to do it. I'm just asking him to illuminate a dark area through my phone or the flash bulb that is there. So we have to be more judicious in utilizing our own devices. We talked about the connected devices. Now, if we say that we want a CCTV camera, what Commander Sandeep was mentioning, if we want I just want to monitor it. Now, monitor it, if someone can get into it, it's as simple as you did it. But if you go in for slightly more sophisticated camera, which has security features, which has enabled certain protocols, what Dr. Geeta Krishnan was mentioning, I mean, they are the ones which bring in the protection. So that awareness is again dependent on us. I hope that gives you the perspective. Any more questions? Yeah, sir. If there are no more questions, then from the panel, I'd like to thank IISSM once again for organizing this session and inviting us for this panel discussion. At least I can vouch for myself, and I'm sure the panelists share the feeling that we've had a good interaction and we've really enjoyed putting across our views to you and answering the queries that have come. And I mean, thank you, IISSM, for hosting us.